The city was involved in some improper budgeting practices, and basically I don't have a say-so in this, and I'm going to open it up to the faction to allow Mike to address your concerns.
Let me say this, each councilman, I would like, that has a question, to address Mike. One question at a time, and then go around the council so that everybody can have a chance to ask a question if they have. With that said,
Well, I can start. If I have to put it in one question, I would ask if my understanding is correct on this. There's two points of questions that I have, and we've talked about some of these, but one is regarding the Hancock Amendment, whether or not it applies, and then the other one is regarding the statutory requirements governing the transfer of funds, the general funds. So on the Hancock Amendment, it's my understanding that the Missouri Constitution contains a Hancock Amendment which prohibits a city from levying any tax, license, or fee without the approval of a citywide vote. The purpose of the Hancock Amendment is to limit the ability of government to tax without voter consent by calling it a fee, or at least that's a part of it that we're concerned with here.
The big thing with most small cities is the transfer fee.
Right, which we don't
They
have.
stick on utilities, which to me is a tax, but they've always called it a transfer fee. And that's how the cities will get money
Right.
from the board that tends to make money to the general fund, which tends to lose money, or not have enough tax revenues coming in.
And that's what I saw, to diverge from that, which I'm glad you jumped right to the point. In the Missouri court, actually, the Missouri Supreme Court ruled on that when it picked up the Hannibal thing, and they said that that was fine if you had that transfer, or that, what is it called? It's a fee.
Transfer.
It's a transfer fee that they assess to the utility itself.
They used to call it franchise tax, and usually people still call it that, but they're supposed to call this transfer fee. That goes back to George Pace, who was saying they couldn't do that.
So the question is, and I've said this a lot of times, it's not that we can't move the money, it's that we can't arbitrarily move the money. We have to have some specific controls in place to address the moving of that money. We can't just arbitrarily plan on, using a surplus to buy police cars and trucks. Otherwise, it can be construed as a tax, therefore falling under Hancock.
I'm not an attorney on that, so I would probably agree with that normally there is some rhyme or reason for a transfer between funds, that it's just not because this fund is broke.
Right.
But I can't say that sometimes transfers are very vague between funds.
So the concern that I have is that I don't have it now because our budget's in the black with the removal of those items. But with those general fund items in our budget and no way to pay for it this year, we were running an annual, not a deficit for the city, but an annual deficit within the general fund budget. And we were relying on surpluses in water just to cover that arbitrarily. If the water department offered, if they paid rent, that would be a way to move it. There are a number of ways we could move the money to pay for this that were not reflected in the budget, and therefore leave us open, in my mind, to the fact that we're just simply using our water and sewer revenues as a generation, as a source of tax, which is illegal under Hancock.
If I may make a point, and Mike can either concur or disagree with me, but Mike, in our budget, just on the G&A side, I got...
Does everybody have the budget that, I don't normally know what you all see from meetings.
Here, Mike.
To be honest with you.
But the highlighted green departments on the income side as well as on the expense side their revenues nowhere exceed the expenditures. So then how does the city fund those expenditures?
I don't understand what you're showing him.
This sheet,
Thank you.
look at the income and look at the expenses for every department on the actual year end. And there are only 2 departments within, what I believe, 12 that generate revenues in excess of their expenditures.
So what question are, yeah, sure. What question are you asking then?
So basically, you're concluding that we're deficit spending.
Yes.
You're-
Yes, absolutely.
So how am I deficit
Sure.
spending when, if you subtract the year-end expenditures
Okay, I think
from
I
the
understand.
year-end revenues, and it shows that we're on the plus side by 368,000, so how am I deficit spending?
We are not deficit spending if you include the water accounts, correct?
Got news for you, they were passed. We combined the budget, if you'll remember.
My point is that, well, first off, I don't know what that means, we combined the budget. I understand that the 2 budgets came together. What I do know is that we are still, or I believe, we are still required to account for these things based on whether they're coming, where
We do
the revenues and
every year
expenses
At
are.
the end of the budget year, if there's surplus.
I'd be
balance,
glad to answer your question about where I
we
see a
roll it over to
deficit.
general revenues. It's done in ordinance form every year.
So-
Kathy can attest to it.
What Renee ran me for your budget, and she's got it in there, you know, I mean, you tend to call it departments that are not funds, but she's got everything, so you can easily see how each department is in a surplus or a deficit. So you can easily see that. You get reports that show this budget and where the deficits are. I don't think anybody has really ever looked at it in the past. But you know, your police
So-
department obviously is, you know,
Sure.
we're in the whole $500,000, so it's got to come from somewhere to cover that deficit.
So the way that I would answer the question that you asked, where is the deficit that I'm seeing? And I've given this to you
I
guys.
know where the deficit is that you're seeing. It's because you've segregated
I've
you've
pulled water and
segregated
sewer out.
water and sewer out.
Correct.
Right.
And that's not what we're working under at this point in time.
And what I am saying is that we should be working under that at
Should
this
be, and
time.
what we're doing are 2 different things.
And I'm looking for what's
I
correct
think
so that
that's
we
the answer
can
that Mike-
handle it.
That we're
But-
kind of looking for.
Yeah,
is-
I agree with you, Sal.
Yeah.
Mike was down here to answer one thing. We were slapped in the paper by saying that we had run a deficit budget for the last 3 years.
In the general funds accounts.
No, it didn't say general fund.
It did, I wrote it.
Okay, you wrote it. But anyway, we have not run a deficit budget for the simple reason there is no water department, or no Board of Public Works. There's
It's
no
all
Board
the
of Public
city, it's
Works.
all just different
It's
funds.
one budget, that's correct.
It's one budget.
And that was brought up by the council 2 years ago and passed by the council, that they abolish the 2 budgets. You used to have to pay 2 audits.
We had 2 separate
Yeah,
books for.
2
whatever.
sets of books. Now, what we did is we combined all departments to one general budget.
Okay.
There's,
Okay.
That part I think we've got.
We all understand that.
I'm not opposed to segregating the budgets if it provides more clarity and makes it easier to understand. I do not have a problem with
My question is to Mike, is there a liability that we're not doing that up to this point? And I know you can't speak from a lawyer's standpoint,
But you
from an accounting.
are, I mean, our audit report, well, first, you do have reports that, in a sense, you know, this report is coming from general ledger accounts. I know you know, your Mass 90 kind of puts it all together, but there are these other supplemental reports, whether or not the council's been using them, are generated. So you can easily see how each department, or really, in our case, fund is doing. You know, then we've been taking these reports, which again, you know, your chart of accounts for these accounting accounts they end in 100 or 200 or 300. So that tells us what department, or I consider fund, they're going into. So your audit that we do definitely breaks out your statements by fund like it should. Now, it appears to me if there's a problem, then we've got to work on getting this where everyone can more easily see how each fund is doing, I guess, or where it stands, because you really don't know until year end how much that fund has in reserves.
And Mike, I
And as long as your total reserves are in the positive, you know, you could book a deficit every year. You just can't book, and again, I'm not an attorney, you cannot book, you know, a deficit if you're already in a deficit, unless you're the federal.
But the decision,
But the city government can't.
the decision to book a deficit is an important consideration when you're passing a budget.
Well, sure. I mean, you don't want to budget a deficit, but it could be a situation where, okay, we've got 2 million in reserves, but we want to do this $1 million project.
Sure.
Well, we can't fund it, but we've got reserves, and so we're going to budget $1 million deficit because we want to do this big thing.
That would be a decision to spend down your reserves.
Correct.
In
Well,
order to
rather
do
than
something for general
Than
revenues.
incurring debt.
Yes, right. Which I don't have any problem with. What I have a problem with is using the monies that we generate for providing water and sewer services as a generator of revenues for things that are not for water and sewer.
Yeah, but I guess in the long term, what you're saying, if the water fund is constantly going to be having this huge surplus, it's going to be building up all this money, and everybody else is going to have cash overdrafts.
Then how do you explain all G&A funding all these other departments that don't have the income? It's the same difference.
G&A,
The general account?
General
General
administrator.
administrator.
I think
Okay.
where
Well,
the
those are
problem
funded
is
by
lying
taxes.
is that the general fund itself was $60,000 short.
No, it
And-
wasn't.
Just a minute.
In this last
Just a
budget,
minute.
it was.
And
The
the
way you
water
figured it.
was,
Yes.
whatever it was in the black,
In the black.
a lot. And so they were taking 60,000 from this to offset the 60,000 that was in the red in the general fund. And in going to MML conferences before, we were told you cannot do that. Even though we commingled so that we're only doing one set of books, you cannot use that water money to offset the general.
And I would agree with that.
Okay.
But you can budget this big deficit in the
Yeah.
general fund because we have other reserves.
Okay.
Right.
So so I think therein lies what the problem was.
We just can't write a water check and say,
Here you go.
Here you go.
Right. And there's ways, you know, like if we were gonna do streets, that we can use some of the water money. But if we borrow money from the water, don't we have to be sure and pay it back?
No?
With these combined funds, there's really not a due to and from. I mean,
Okay.
It's not unusual for me to see, you know, a fund with an overdraft
Okay.
in the combined cash account. I mean, that happens. It has to be addressed at some point in time.
Right.
You know, this fund is
Well, I know.
constantly losing money. What are we
Clarksville
gonna do?
just got slapped big time for this commingling these, using the water money for the general fund. So that's why, you know, we have this question, and that, as simply as you can put it, that's the question. Can we do this? That's as simple as that. Can we run a deficit in the general fund?
Yes, because we have reserves, yes.
Okay.
The way it's being functioned now, we're okay doing it.
Right.
We can run a deficit. No one has said we couldn't run a deficit. What we have said very clearly is that you can't use the water and sewer funds to arbitrarily cover that deficit. That you need a specific mechanism, whether that's...
That is in your verbiage.
And it's also what the Supreme
And
Court
your
said.
You know, you're not a lawyer.
And neither are you.
No, I'm not.
Yet we're both responsible to follow the law.
So,
Mike, just
Mike?
answer the question that you had. It's not illegal. That's what
can
your
I ask-
question was.
No, that wasn't my question.
Sal, go ahead.
I'm gonna ask Mike a question, and this is a little off subject. One of the things that I was looking into was the bond issues. And, you know, we had 99, 2011, 1997, those accounts. Again, is this an accounting issue that we didn't fund these? Well, there's the replacement fund, the operational maintenance account, that we're required to hold X amount of dollars in those yearly.
Yeah,
And it's obviously impossible to fund it to that amount.
right.
So that's my concern was, once these
And
accounts
we
are
tend to see
missing.
that for whatever reason, when these bonds are put into place,
Right.
it's impossible. The only one that would have a problem with that would be obviously your bondholders. You know,
Right.
that they would say, you've got to do this.
Would there be a default issue there for us if we don't meet those requirements?
I can't imagine that would be the case, but I guess.
$1 million is
In
a
theory,
little
they
rough for
could
us
be. Yeah, in theory, there could be, sure.
Okay.
On that same issue, which is the second issue that's here, there are statutory requirements that before we move money from water and sewer accounts into general accounts, that things like those funds have to be taken care of first. There's, 210-150 lays out 5 things that have to happen before you can move the funds. And that fund, that $900,000 fund, which is ridiculous, we can't possibly do it. I'm saying there's a problem we need to address and fix so that we can. But by statute, I don't think we can move these funds like you're wanting to do.
And I thought was really nice was the fact that you never provided me or the mayor with a copy of your letter.
Is that an actual
To Mike.
situation?
With my letter to Mike,
Yeah. On your inquiries.
You mean these reserves?
I try to copy you on everything. If I didn't, it
You
was
did.
an oversight, okay?
Whoever
From my
wrote,
Oversight, I see.
right, whoever wrote that should have said, there's no way we can do this.
So we would have
The
an issue.
underwriter would be the
Well,
one that.
we wouldn't have an issue with the state. We would have
Oh.
more an issue with the bond issue.
No.
But I think, we should, we're aware of it now,
Yeah.
so should we, what do we do about it?
Yeah,
And
Mike,
maybe it should be
and
addressed every.
I haven't
That
had a
was my
chance to
concern.
talk to you since then, but we've made changes within the water department's budget to coincide with the ordinances that we have to provide for that capital improvement replacement account, plus the operations and maintenance accounts.
Okay.
So
Sewer and water.
that is in there, and I'll have Christina forward that to you.
I showed that to him upstairs.
Oh,
I showed
okay.
him where the new line items are in under wastewater revenue and taken out of the capital.
And that's to address these issues that were presented.
Okay.
That was my question I needed an answer.
Okay.
Okay, I had a question like this, because I just want to know all this, whether something's being done or written up properly. My question just gets down to this. In your opinion, does the current structure of the city's accounting methods conform to generally accepted professional standards for governmental accounting?
I could easily say no, because we don't keep, true funds, but,
Just
we're a
the
small
generally
city.
accepted
Yeah,
method
we're a
of
small
accounting.
city, so as long as someone at the end is doing that, I don't think that's a problem, but it obviously, if we're having this meeting, it appears to be a problem here. So maybe it's something we need to change.
Okay, so there might be some suggestions you might come up with to say that we could keep records a little bit differently to make some of these things a little bit clearer.
So you can more easily see true
Right.
funds and how each fund.
In our
is-
forthcoming
You
audit.
kind of do in these reports, how
Okay.
each fund's doing.
Which I guess also means that the city kind of doesn't. If they kind of do, then they kind of don't.
Okay.
Would that be fair?
That would be fair.
Okay. And I wanted to ask about this chapter 67050, which provides that during the budget year, any political subdivision may transfer any unencumbered balance or portion thereof from the expenditure authorization of one department, office, commission, or any other classification to another, subject to such limitations as may be provided by law or charter. So,
I mean, if you're reading that, you're saying,
yes.
if
So
it's that
water
general,
surplus-
let's just do whatever we want to do.
Because my understanding
that
is that
general.
there was a historical reason why water was different. And the historical reason is that cities have some functions that are called governmental functions that only governments can do, like police forces and collecting taxes. And the government is immune when it does those things. But when it engages in proprietary functions like operating
business.
a gas company,
Right,
a
or water.
water company, those could be done by private companies.
Sure they could.
And they don't have governmental immunity. And that's the difference. So it probably doesn't make any difference in terms of counting though, does it?
No.
Okay.
I think we need to, obviously, we're getting into the financial portion of the meeting. Mike, I thank you so very much for being here. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
I'm
But they
absolutely
were
not clear
questions.
on this.
I'm
I am
sorry?
absolutely not clear on
Just
this.
5 minutes.
Well,
Well,
I'm sorry that
you're
not-
one individual and then you will have to remain unclear.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm one individual.
You are one council person
And you're one city administrator.
Let's do something.
and you have your option to take care of that later.
Does any of y'all others have any problem with the budget? No, so, thank you,
You
Mike.
Excuse me,
No,
Bob?
I'm done.
What did you just say?
Thank you, Mike. Thank
In open session?
And what did you call me last week in open session?
What did I call you?
You basically called me a liar and
No, I said there was truth we could get to.
that's what we'll get to.
We need to do the 353.
you. Okay, on the 353,
Smart ass.
I'm gonna call the council, to order 5 minutes early. No. At 5:30, before we go into finance, I need to read a resolution and make some appointments because it's an annual.
So are we doing that now?
Can we do that now?
Can't do it until
It was
the council's in
5:15.
session.
That meeting was set up for 5:15.
Okay, it is.
we can go into
So
it.
we'll call, we'll go into the meeting. It's called for 5:15. Call the roll.
Mr. Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Hoffman? Mr. Newman?
Here.
Mr. Collis?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Present.
Mr. White?
Here.
Mr. Wood?
Here.
Okay, we have to make an appointment for the 353. We were contacted, and I'll let Bob read the
Resolution 2013-A, a resolution by the shareholder of the Louisiana Missouri Redevelopment Corporation electing the 2013 directors. Whereas the Louisiana Missouri Redevelopment Corporation, in parentheses, the corporation was formed on July 11, 2001, the date of the filing of the Articles of Agreement with the Secretary of State's office in conformance with Chapter 353, and whereas pursuant to the corporation's bylaws, the shareholder of the corporation shall elect the directors at the shareholders' annual meeting, and whereas the shareholder of the corporation desires to elect the 2013 directors of the corporation, now therefore be resolved by the shareholder of the Louisiana Missouri Redevelopment Corporation, acting by and through its mayor and city council as follows. Section 1, the following shall be, and they hereby are, elected directors of the corporation, each to hold office until such director's successor is duly elected and qualified, or until such director's earlier resignation or removal. Those named are Joseph E. Schuckenbrock, Clyde Penrod, James M. Leslie. Section 2, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its adoption and approval as provided by law. Adopted and approved by the shareholder of the Louisiana-Missouri Redevelopment Corporation, acting by and through its mayor and city council, this 10th day of June, 2013.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution as read.
Second by Larry White. Call the roll.
Discussion, just a simple question, who were the directors prior to this?
The Clyde Penrod, James Leslie, and Jim Ross.
So this is basically replacing Jim
Ross
with
resigned
Joe.
because of conflict of interest.
Great, thank you, that's all.
Motion made and seconded. Call the roll.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neighbors?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes, abstaining from James Leslie.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Elliott? Mr. Hoffman? Mr. Neighbors?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes. Okay, now
We'll roll right in finance.
we'll call the Finance Committee to order. Sal.
Make a motion to approve minutes from the last meeting. Do you have this?
Second.
All in favor? Motion approved. Let's see. Well, before I get into this, is there anything that we really need to touch on the budget, or is all that business taken care of through the special meeting?
That was taken care of
Okay.
through the special meeting.
I know you have an issue, but we'll get there in a second. We need to put on the agenda to pass warrants 45 through 52, totaling the amount of $225,913.70. Make a motion to put that on full council.
Second.
All in favor? Motion approved. I have no issues. Does anybody have an issue before we get to Bob on finance? Bob, you want to jump in there?
Yep, basically, we had put out for bids the distribution utility truck, and we got 3 bids. They were all within $2,000 of each other. The lowest bid being Bowling Green Chevrolet, which went ahead and secured the vehicle for us after we provided them with a $1,000 deposit. So given the fact of their proximity and the warranty arrangement and everything else, I would ask that we take this to full council for approval for me to go ahead and make the purchase from Bowling Green Chevrolet.
What's the total? You know?
It's right at 31.5. It came in at a little lower than we anticipated.
And you said there was an issue that had just recently come up on the truck that we're using currently?
Yes, the wiring harness for the transmission is toast.
What year is this? What year is that vehicle? Curiosity, rough shot.
A 95?
Out of warranty.
Huh?
Out of warranty.
Definitely out of warranty. And this truck will have a whole new box, utility bed, the whole 9 yards. And it's 4-wheel drive as opposed to the one that we have now, which is not.
Okay. Anybody have questions on the truck? Do we have any idea how much it would cost to fix that wiring harness, or is it just ridiculous?
I think after I may look at trying to trade this one in if it's not going to be totally ridiculous to get it fixed and it's not going to offset the difference between what we would get on a trade-in and buying it out new, or trying to get it fixed and then sell it.
What funds will these be coming out of? Park?
That will come out of the distribution funds.
Okay.
And truck and equipment replacement, large truck and equipment replacement account.
Okay, I make a motion to bring the full council purchasing the utility truck.
Second.
All in favor? Motion approved. Anything else?
I only have a bill here from Cleaner to go to DNR for $10,167.26. I haven't received anything.
For
from
Lehman? So in that situation, we'd have to wait till they bill us, invoice us for next month?
Or is that just for engineering services and nothing through layman?
Well, no, this is their normal bill that they submit every month.
How much was this year?
$10,167.28. Usually Lehman's bill is with
This looks like it's strictly their bill.
it. Right.
Yeah, there it is. Construction administration. It falls under construction administration and geotechnical services provided by Klinger. So it's strictly an engineering piece. Right. And then construction observation.
This is what they normally submit
Sure.
every month, but we usually have Lehman's to go with it.
Right.
Yeah.
We never got.
So this is not, does not include Lehman.
Right. Which we'll just have to look at next month. Okay, I make a motion to bring that bill for Klinger to full council to pay.
In the amount of $10,167.26.
26 cents.
26 or 28?
26 cents?
26.
Yes.
All in favor?
Do you have a second?
Second, I apologize. All in favor? Motion approved. Quick question for me. Based on that meeting we just had with Mr. Mudd, we've taken some items out of that budget to lower that. Where is that going to stand? Are we going to wait to hear more from Mike Mudd on the dictation of what we just went over and how that's going to change our budgeting?
My suggestion would be that we not try and reinstitute those expenditures until we've had time to reflect upon all this stuff. And it's something that we could bring back up for consideration at mid-year review come December.
I agree with that. Mr. Rapp?
I'm not sure exactly how you would accomplish this, but since your accountant is saying that the city's accounting methods don't necessarily conform to generally accepted professional standards for governmental entities, I'd suggest that maybe you as finance and Mr. Jenny and Renee and the mayor have a meeting with him and maybe get some ideas on
Yeah, 'cause
how you could do that, because
Absolutely. When they come in and do the next audit, I think that would behoove us to clear the air,
Absolutely.
provide the transparency that everybody wants, and
Absolutely.
the whole 9 yards.
It's a great idea.
I agree completely.
and address those issues.
Absolutely.
I agree. I'm not on this committee, but I totally agree with what you have to say.
Okay, Sal.
Sorry, she just saved my life. There was a giant spider crawling on me.
Ooh.
I could hear it crawling. That's a big spider. It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex spider. I apologize.
Yeah, that's something I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
agree that we should incorporate.
What's our timeline on when are they meeting with us again?
The 24th through the 26th.
And
Of this month, Renee?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll report on that.
I have no oppositions to
Okay.
anybody attending and oversight or anything.
Great. Great idea. Thank you, Mr. Ritter. Anything else? I move to adjourn Finance Committee.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.